بخشهایی از سخنرانی‌های شهردار جولیانی و ژنرال جیمز جونز در گردهمایی جوامع ایرانیان در آمریکا.
Thank you very, very much for the honor of being with you today. I'm deeply inspired by the message from Mrs. Rajavi that we've all just heard, and I don't know what more there is to say after that, but we'll try to do it. The ideals of freedom and, yes, its own people. It will strengthen the regime's hand in repressing the voice of freedom inside and outside of Iran, including through violence like the evil inflicted on the refugees of Camp Ashraf and Camp Liberty in Iraq, which ultimately resulted in 140 deaths, 7 abductions, and more than 1,300 wounded. This, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot accept. We must no longer accept it. Passivity and weakness in the face of this tyrannical regime has no place in our policies and in our governments. I will always deeply regret that despite our efforts, the United States did not act with greater speed and commitment on behalf of the Ashraf and Liberty refugees. The outrageous delay in coming to their aid resulted in innocent loss of life, and frankly, I regard the chapter as a glaring and I hope atypical failure in America's leadership of the international human rights movement. All of this despite overwhelming evidence of Iran's crimes against humanity. As a longtime advocate for their protection and humanitarian resettlement, along with my friends here today, I'm of course relieved that the refugees were finally relocated out of harm's way to Albania. The Iranian regime has stepped up its presence and plots in Albania and elsewhere, hoping to harm these dissidents who wish to see a free Iran. In March, Albanian authorities arrested 2 Iranian agents. We can well imagine from past experience about their designs. Additionally, Albania's capacity to provide proper care and support is somewhat limited. We must do what's necessary to ensure that the dissidents, having survived the depredations of the regime and its proxies in Iraq, are not made to become subject of the Iranian regime's plots in Albania. And of course, the regime is keeping up its efforts to silence dissidents elsewhere. In June, a terror plot against the annual gathering of the Iranian opposition in Paris was thwarted. And just last month, U.S. law enforcement arrested 2 Iranian spies surveilling and gathering intelligence on members of the pro-democracy opposition in this country, as Mrs. Rajavi pointed out. These are not just some actions of a regime that knows that it is out of step with modernity and fearful of those with a vision and a plan for a better future. As you know, I've been privileged to be a part of a large group of former and current U.S. civilian and military leaders advocating for their rights and welfare, and we will continue to do so. This includes everyone here today at the front table, but I have to say that I'm very proud that it also includes the President's National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who has remained steadfast in his support. In framing U.S. policy ahead, including the oil sanctions to be imposed later this autumn, measures that I would add are already working. Secretary Pompeo articulated a simple but compelling goal. Quote, "Our efforts," he said, "is to one day see Iranians in Iran enjoying the same quality of life that Iranians in America enjoy." Achieving that vision is deeply rooted in Mrs. Merriam Rajavi's aspirations. It's the core of her 10-point plan for Iran's future. These are Jeffersonian principles that every freedom-loving member of the human race can embrace and that every form of tyranny fears. We all know what those 10 points are, and I will not belabor the point, except to say that, that these 10 principles, as I refer to them as really truly Jeffersonian principles, this is what the regime fears the most. And we look forward with great anticipation to the day when its fears are realized in full. Ladies and gentlemen, the future that should serve as a warning to the regime and tell them, your days are numbered. Not because of the condemnation and resolve of the international community that will insist on Iran's compliance with international law. They are numbered because your people will not stop in their demand for a government that reflects their hopes, their dreams, and their aspirations. Their fulfillment rests on the establishment of a united, principled, courageous, and organized civic opposition, one that can touch people's heart and minds, one that can harness their passion and conviction to ensure not only that spring returns to Iran, but that spring blossoms into an enduring season of peace and prosperity. That day will come soon. Of this I'm certain. That day will come soon when all Iranians will be set free, when all who are forced to flee their homeland to avoid persecution will lead a great parade in Tehran to celebrate the triumphant return of a great people to their rightful position among the family of nations. That is a future worth creating. Thank you very much.
It's a great honor to speak with you, and also to remind you that there are a whole group of others, as General Jones mentioned, of former civilian, military, government officials, Republican, Democrat, Independent, all different political ideas and thinking, about 100 of us, and we agree on one thing, that Iran is entitled to freedom and democracy, that Iran should be led by leaders like Madame Rajavi and others. And that would be the only assurance of a peaceful Iran. The only assurance of a peaceful Iran is to have a stable, democratic, lawful, decent regime so that we can say, General, the Iranian government, the Iranian nation, and not these group of outlaws and murderers and people who pretend to be religious people and then have so much blood on their hands, it's almost unthinkable. When the history of this period is written, the two Ayatollahs will go down as two of the worst murderers, mass murderers of the last century and this century, and they deserve to go down as that. You know, very, very often we've had the issue brought up against us that the MEK really is not a very powerful organization. It's a cult. Are we a cult? I've never belonged to a cult. I think it might be fun. They wear like strange things and hats and stuff. But we're not a cult. We're people who are joined by something that is timeless, and that is the love of freedom, the love of democracy, the love of human life, which these people trash daily. Now, we've always known how powerful, I've always known, and my colleagues have, how powerful you are, the powerful influence you have within Iran. And I always would say to others who doubted it, why do they want to kill them so badly? You don't want to kill meaningless little protesters who can't hurt you. But in case there's ever been any doubt about it, I'm just going to read to you something that comes right out of the regime about the MEK just a couple of weeks ago. Now, who meets both of these conditions, both the desire to overthrow and the potential capability to translate this desire into reality? the reality, the overthrow of the regime. It is at this point that everyone would collectively point to the MEK. And this is something that, I won't say all these nice things they say about him, Khomeini has reiterated time and again. Therefore, it's necessary we identify them to raise awareness and to prepare all of us against their real and serious threat. So now tell me that you're not a serious threat. If the regime we're trying to overthrow sees us as a threat, you are a threat. It is a reality. The protests are getting worse. I don't know when we're going to overthrow them. It could be in a few days, months, a couple of years, but it's going to happen. They're going to be overthrown. The people of Iran obviously have now had enough. The sanctions are working. The currency is going to nothing. And I'll conclude by reminding everyone that when we have these revolutions and these overthrows, a constant realistic fear is what's going to replace the regime. And sometimes it has been catastrophic consequences, and sometimes it's worked out well. Here we have no doubt. Under the leadership of Madame Rajavi, under the leadership of all of you, of the leadership of the coalition she's established, not just MEK, but a vast coalition, 100,000 people in Paris, doctors, lawyers, scientists, engineers, and hardworking people, some wealthy, some middle class, some poor, but hardworking people who can stand up a government. This isn't Iraq after the Iraq invasion. This is a diaspora of Iranians who are ready, willing, and able to come, to help, to sacrifice their lives, their fortune, their wealth, and make Iran free. Thank you.